Strap in, because this episode is wild. We're talking political sabotage, death, censorship, the future of late-night TV, and, just for some whiplash, a children's bread puppet who's more depressed than most middle-aged accountants. It's Season 12, Episode 23 of Last Week Tonight with John Oliver, and the recap you're about to get covers every jaw-dropping twist and turn. Let's get into it. John Oliver bursts right back after a week off, acknowledging that the news cycle was relentless while the show was gone. Tension in Gaza escalated. Costco released a recall that basically turned Prosecco into glass grenades, and Donald Trump crashed the UK, earning both stately dinners and public protest. Oliver, in his trademark style, sets the stage with rapid-fire, irreverent jokes about shattering Prosecco, framed Epstein photographs at Windsor Castle, and the ever-present threat of being deported for his commentary. But the real plot this week isn't just international news. Oliver dives deep into the U.S. media landscape, starting with a bombshell. Jimmy Kimmel Live has been pulled off ABC indefinitely, following comments about the controversial murder of conservative influencer Charlie Kirk. The head of the Federal Communications Commission, FCCA, Brendan Carr, threatened Kimmel's show after a monologue that speculated on the ideological background of Kirk's killer, rumors that, at that point, hadn't been confirmed. The episode carefully tracks the chain reaction. Carr goes on a right-wing podcast, lays down a thinly veiled threat. Nexstar, a media conglomerate with stakes in local TV and a major pending merger that requires FCC approval, yanks Kimmel's show. Sinclair Broadcasting, in a similar position, follows suit and publicly applauds Carr for his remarks. Oliver doesn't let them off easy, comparing their local broadcaster status to calling Coca-Cola a neighborhood soda shop and gleefully mocking their obvious desire to keep regulators happy. What did Jimmy Kimmel actually say? That's a centerpiece of Oliver's investigation. Turns out, Kimmel's remarks weren't as inflammatory as headlines suggested. He didn't make fun of Charlie Kirk's death or denigrate the victim. He pointed out right-wing efforts to frame the killer as anything other than one of them, and accused MAGA media of weaponizing Kirk's murder for their own talking points. Oliver notes that he was even on Kimmel's show that evening, barely noticing the supposed offensive comment. What gets surreal, and what fuels Oliver's monologue, is watching Carr and others respond with meme culture. The chairman texts a smiley emoji back to reporters, shares office GIFs, even trades memes with the guy who played Artie on Glee. Sinclair just cranks the suck up dial to 11. Even Ted Cruz, who's not shy to admit he's gleeful at Kimmel's firing, calls Carr's conduct right out of Goodfellas, and warns that government censorship will eventually turn on conservatives. Oliver zooms out, explaining that the FCC's news distortion power is real, but the bar is extremely high and rarely enforced. What's happening now, he argues, is less about actual policy and more about muddy, veiled pressure, threats that keep the media in check by dangling merger approvals and licensing over their heads. And, as Oliver savagely notes, there's hypocrisy galore. Sinclair, the same company wagging its finger at Kimmel, regularly runs conspiracy-filled commentaries speculating about murder plots, drone attacks, and deep state interference, never facing the same government backlash. So where does this all lead? The real tension is whether Kimmel's suspension is a turning point for televised political comedy in America. Oliver draws hair, raising parallels to Hungary and Russia, countries where leadership cracked down on media and satire under the pretense of balancing bias, often targeting comedians first. He recounts Russian TV satirists being silenced and independent channels being forcibly taken over. His message: don't get complacent and let these attacks slide just because other shows still exist. What starts with one show can quickly become a systemic purge. There's a sharp, self-aware moment as Oliver reflects on his own show's safety, being on cable, not bound by FCC influence, only to be interrupted by news of a potential Warner Bros. Discovery merger with Paramount Skydance, which could easily shuffle the deck and expose even cable giants to new risks and pressures. His reaction is pure Oliver T. expletives, resigned humor, and a bittersweet acknowledgement that nothing in media is secure. So what's the call to action? Oliver urges Disney, ABC's parent, to do what's right, warning that caving to pressure only encourages future censorship. He points out that public pressure, like canceling Disney Plus or Hulu, can send a message, and even recommends utilizing the reason for cancellation box to spell out, in hilarious detail, your disappointment. Ultimately, he tells Disney's CEO that embarrassing, cowardly compliance will age worse than any risky business decision. And with a flourish, Oliver wraps up the main story with his classic stand up to bullies line: defects to you make me. The message is clear. Media companies must defend the First Amendment, even, and especially, when it's uncomfortable. But in classic last week tonight tradition, the episode doesn't just end on a political gut punch. Instead, the final act swings sharply to children's television. Oliver spotlights Bernd Das Brot, a German puppet and literal bread loaf who is clinically depressed, anti-social, and a cult favorite. This puppetry deep dive is hilarious. Tough Bernd hates comedy, constantly drops catchphrases like, "My life is hell," and has the backstory of heartbreak over an unattainable French baguette. There's lore about his statue being kidnapped by anarchists, comparisons to Victoria's Secret models, and endless jokes about German gloom. Oliver concludes with a surreal meeting between himself and Bernd in the void, a fever, dream visual gag that cements both the bread's misery and Oliver's kinship with the character. Bernd laments hope, rebuffs friendship, and trades deadpan insults with Oliver and the show's recurring void entity. It's the perfect comedic bookend. DG bleak European existentialism meets self-aware American satire. In summary, this episode is a roller coaster of serious reflection and absurd laughter. The censorship and free speech storyline is dense with details: corporate collusion, media mergers, veiled government threats. But Oliver threads it with biting humor, meme critiques, and pop culture references that humanize the stakes. The pivot to Burn the Bread isn't just comic relief, it's a meta commentary on the persistence of satire in the face of adversity. Bread may be miserable, hope may be a joke, but, like Oliver, the show keeps talking, roasting, and refusing to back down. If you loved this recap, hit like, drop your thoughts in the comments, share with a friend who needs their news with side of comedy. And don't forget to subscribe for more detailed breakdowns every week. What did you think of the Kimmel controversy? Do you relate to burned the bread? What's your take on meme culture in high places? Sound off below.